All right, you remember the poem? See if you can remember it.
Whether left or right or wrong, our opinions make a song. In the end, you are my friend. Your opinion I'll defend. Left or right or wrong, our voices make a song.
Right or left?
In the end, you are my friend, and your opinion I'll defend.
Right or left, right or wrong, together our voices make a song. For in the end, we are friends, and your opinion I'll defend. Nicki Minaj.
No, watching the media go crazy about Nicki Minaj is like one of the funniest things ever.
I don't know. There's some very funny things that Norm MacDonald did.
That's true. Like ripping on OJ for fucking.
Well, in the face of all these people saying it's like, we don't want you doing this. Because people are saying it's like, we don't want you touching these OJ jokes. This Don Ohlmeyer guy, he plays golf with OJ. They're friends. And, plus, they think that, you're picking on OJ and that might come off as racist and we're NBC. And Norm's just like, fuck you. I do what I want. I'm Norm MacDonald.
And that's why you can see he's almost like, when he does those jokes, I mean, Norm is like this anyway, but he's almost like a little kid about it. You know what I mean? Like he knows he's putting his hand in the cookie jar and he's not supposed to.
Absolutely.
And he's like smiling in your face as he does it.
Yeah, I can't remember who. I think it was Stephen Crowder who said, Norm MacDonald was the finger in the chest of people in power.
Yeah.
And just like I said in my somewhat popular video about Live Like Norm MacDonald, it's like, he went on The View and called Bill Clinton a murderer, and made a joke out of it, But he wasn't invited back to The View ever again, No,
they got mad at him like immediately as he was saying it.
And when he got fired from Saturday Night Live, he kind of got blackballed. I mean, it legitimately hurt his career. His gambling didn't help, but I mean, it was crazy. He was one of the first victims of cancel culture, in many ways.
Yeah, totally.
100%. We talked last time, like Lenny Bruce and George Carlin, probably victims of cancel culture as well when it really started. But in the 90s, that's when like political correctness really started gaining some momentum and so forth. And Norm just wasn't having it because everything I think it can be made fun of.
Yeah, nothing is sacred.
Yeah, or that sacred. In fact, the more sacred people hold it, the funnier it is.
Exactly.
And that's why when he went on The View and he upset all those people is because he knew that they held the Clintons as sacred. And that's why it was funny to just poke fun at their little golden god. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, 100%. And Norm is such like the fool in that way, man. I mean, he really gets it. In ancient times, in medieval times, the fool was there in the king's court, to remind the king of his humanity.
That's right.
And I think Norm did a really good job of that as a comedian, just for everybody. You know what I mean? Especially in situations like that.
Absolutely. And think about the guts it takes, for Norm MacDonald to know that all those women there on The View are Clinton supporters and stuff like that. George Bush had just gotten elected. And so it's like, hey, I'm going to go in there and mess with these chicks. You watch, But at the same time, he's got to have the guts to go in there and, push these buttons. So how it is when you get up on stage or something like that and your heart's fluttering and you're nervous and stuff like that. You're going on a national program, just to push people's buttons. That takes guts. It takes courage. It takes courage to be the jester in the court and make fun of the king. Absolutely.
I mean, some of the best comedy it takes pushing the button. You know what I mean? Establishing the line of what's wrong and what's right. And I love Norm so much. One of my favorite things about Norm is the way he can deliver a joke that he knows is hacky. He knows it's not like a top tier joke,
right?
But he delivers it the way that he delivers it, and then just looks at you and smiles like, "Yeah, I said it, motherfucker." You can't help but laugh at him. You know what I mean?
Well, plus he is masterful at timing. I don't know how he did it, but he would like control a conversation by pacing, and usually he'd do that by repeating stuff. So I says to the guy, I said to the guy, I said to the guy, you know, and when you control the pacing of a conversation like that, that's when you can control the timing and drop the punchline when you want. And so I think it's just masterful. It's like watching him work with, and like you have to have like watched the special or something like that 5 times in a row already, so you're kind of not laughing so hard that you could pay attention to what he's doing. You know, it's like a master's class in comedy. And I mean, every time I watch, I think I'll watch a video of his, I'm just like, man, there's something, I know there's something here I can learn from. So I mean, that's why it's such a tragedy, you know.
No, it is sad. And like I was telling you before we started the show, it's been amazing seeing all the comedians come together over something here in Austin, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
when we live in such a divided time, and then, you know, we're in a community of people that are just fucking so jaded and opinionated, you know what I mean? So for everybody to come together for at least a week, at least a
couple of hours, yeah.
You know, and agree that Norm was one of the greats, and kind of have a moment of silence for him all as comedians was powerful to see how big of an effect that he had on people. Because, you know, even when people like Chappelle or Rogan pass, I think you're still going to have, you know, naysayers or what have you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, because they can be divisive in ways, if perceived incorrectly, if misunderstood, you know, because they're talking about topics that are that are just generally divisive in our country, but they bring that voice of reason to it, and find a way to put it through that prism to where everybody can laugh at it for the most part, unless you're like overly sensitive out looking to be offended. And, you know, those people won't be sad when Rogan or Chappelle pass away, but
worse, they'll say something nasty about him on social media or something like that. But when you talk about like Dave Chappelle or Joe Rogan or even Norm Macdonald, it's like these are people who lived controversially. So why wouldn't their death be controversial to some people? I mean, that makes sense. I think living controversially is a testament to somebody's personality. In the sense that, you know, Norm was controversial while he was alive, and so therefore his death should be controversial to some people as well because of what he did while he was alive.
Right.
And so I think that, you know, he should be proud of himself because it makes people talk. It makes people talk about the things that we joke about, what we think is acceptable to say in our society, you know. And when you talk about people like Joe Rogan and Norm Macdonald and Dave Chappelle, you're talking about three different people from three different areas of the political spectrum. You know, and they'll all have jokes that were edgy and stuff like that. And I mean, I think that, you know, that's why Norm Macdonald appealed to more people. Like he didn't talk much about his faith or his politics and comedy and so forth. So that made him more accessible to everybody. His humor more accessible. And I think that it's a good thing to do. And the problem is that you have less and less comedians, quote unquote comedians, who are like Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle or Norm Macdonald, who they just get up there and they say politically correct things and they'll just clap, you know, clap at it. It's like, you know, that's not comedy. Comedy needs to poke fun at these things that we are unsure about, you know, as
that we take too seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because really, at the end of the day, none of this is worth taking that seriously. You know what I mean?
Well, take something like abortion. Like, as a conservative, you know, I'm very anti-abortion and stuff like that. However, I can laugh at abortion jokes, you know, because I know that it's a serious subject, and that serious subject weighs heavy on my soul. And so for my own personal relief, you got to poke fun at the things that terrify or offend you.
Yeah. You know? For me, I laugh even harder at jokes that surround subject matter that involves my trauma.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know, when I hear those jokes about abusive parents and, you know, alcoholic families, that's the shit that makes me laugh the hardest, because that's the trauma that I went through. And I think that's a big part of the reason why at least some people, including myself, do comedy, is to help. It's a healing process. I'm trying to help you laugh at yourself and your traumas and your experiences, because they don't have to define you, and you don't have to, you know, be a sad sack about it.
Absolutely.
And
The news about Norm came out. It's like, and everyone, he died of cancer.
mhm.
And everyone was like, all his close friends saying, he didn't tell me. He didn't, his family and his friends and his fans, they didn't know he had cancer.
Mhm.
But now everyone in retrospect is going back through his comedy, like clipping out these things where he's talking about death and cancer and so forth. And so he had that information, 9 years ago or 10 years
Mhm.
ago or something like that, that he had cancer, and that's probably what's going to end his life. And so after that, he started doing a bunch of jokes about cancer and death and stuff like that. And, that's part of his healing and coming to terms with like his own mortality and so forth.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I would expect nothing less for a man that funny.
Yeah, totally. Now Norm is one of the greats for sure, man. And I think it's the last thing that I really have to say. You were talking about, him and Rogan and Chappelle and controversy. And although Norm did have some humor that was controversial or could be misunderstood by the wrong ear, like Hitler's dog, the Hitler's dog joke, you know what I mean? Not everybody's going to get that. They're just going to hear Hitler and their brain is going to go off on a fucking tangent because they heard that code word. Or like, we were talking about with the OJ jokes. Although those things could be considered controversial, he was right. As a comedian, he did a good job proving his theories comedically. And that's a big part of what comedy is about, you know what I mean, is the satire of it all and trying to prove an idea with comedy. And even though Norm was a little bit controversial in those instances, his personality is so fucking lovable, man. Just his presentation, who he is as a person, his smile, his eyes, his laugh. You know what I mean? It's almost hard not to like him because he's just,
even when he's mean,
the guy you could have a beer with.
Absolutely. He's disarming in the way he presents himself. And I think that even though he's offended all these people and stuff like that, I think that he was a very charming man. And that went a long way for him in many ways. And the fact that he suffered with this ailment, in solidarity, in silence, is testament to the kind of man he was. He didn't want to burden us with that fear and compassion. He didn't want accolades based upon I'm sick, I want your pity or anything like that. Now anytime somebody goes out and they get a hangnail or something like that, they put it on Instagram. They're like, oh, what am I going to do about this hangnail? It's everyone's out there whining about, it's like, oh, I'm just feeling so horrible today. I don't know what's going on. Somebody misgendered me and stuff like that. And it's like, Norm had cancer. It didn't tell anyone, because he didn't want to burden anyone else with his problems. And I think that we all need to take that page out of Norm's book and say, hey, most people don't want to hear about your problems. They want to forget about their problems when they talk to you. And I could sit here and say it's like how bummed out I've been all week because of Norm's passing. But I mean, at the same time, I feel immense solidarity with all the people who are saying, like, yeah, I loved him and I miss him too. And that's what we should be doing with each other. That's what social media should do for humanity, is bring us together in these moments and not drive us apart through is like, I'm offended by what he said. I'm offended by what you said. I got a hangnail. I stubbed my toe. Somebody misgendered me today. Whatever you're bitching about, nobody wants to hear that. They just want to laugh and have a good time and remember Norm fondly.
Yep. And I think it's a testament to what a true comedian he was too, because most people who are comedians or funny people are the ones that are dealing with the most darkness, and they would never tell you about it. Instead, what they do is they present themselves as this clown. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's this what they say in Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's like you're right there at that stage between suicidal and not actually suicidal, where most comedians, that's where they thrive.
That's the sweet spot. Hey, look, and as a comedian, I can tell you, I write my best jokes when I'm dealing with something that I'm upset about. You know what I mean? When I'm dealing with heartbreak or a loss of a friend or just whatever the thing is. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
And like I said with Norm, he took something dark in his life and he turned it into a light.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know. It's just, I think God broke the mold on that one.
Yeah. Hunter S. Thompson would say, too weird to live and too rare to die.
Yeah.
One of God's own prototypes never considered for mass reproduction.
Absolutely. All right. This is bumming me out. You want to talk about AOC?
Yeah, let's talk about AOC and her tax the rich. Fuck him. Yeah. I agree with the message. And look, I know she's not a billionaire like the people she was talking to, but you just paid like 30 grand for a ticket to the Met Gala. You're trying to tell me to tax the rich.
Well, I think she was comped it. She was given it by the Met because they wanted her to show up and do something like this to bring media attention to it.
Right.
That was a good decision by the Met.
Yeah.
Because it brought media attention to that event. I think that it's hilarious to come in there with that, because I mean, how many people were there? They're going, yes, you should tax us more because I got tax shelters in the Cayman Islands or whatever. Like that. You're not going to find my money. So I mean, it's
because for all the celebrities they show in those photo shoots, you don't recognize all the fucking billionaires walking around that place.
Yeah, well, people with real money, they hide from the cameras. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Or they could be right in front of the camera and you would never know who it is.
Yeah, because they're not making waves. They're not desperate for attention like AOC is. And I think that's what she did there. She was desperate for attention. And I like what Ben Shapiro said about the whole this whole thing is that they're cosplaying a revolution, and I think that that's what she was trying to do. They're all in there and they're maskless and they're in their tax the rich dresses and stuff like that. But all the their servants are there and they all have to be masked, and stuff like that. And then AOC she walks out of the building and has people holding her dress so it doesn't get dirty. She's cosplaying this revolution and pretending to be a princess. And I think we all know that's what AOC really wants, is to be treated like a princess.
I treat her like a princess. I mean, if that's what she wants.
I mean, I'm not saying she didn't wear the dress well. I mean, she could have took the writing off of it. I wish she would have looked way better. And I could argue all day about like who's hotter, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Ilhan Omar, because that's a tough one for me. They're both pretty hot, even though they're just despicable people. I'm still a man. I'm not much of one, but I'm still a man.
No, AOC is definitely a very attractive lady, bro. I would strap her ass to my face like a fucking feed bag for sure.
Okay, well, if that's what you're into, maybe she had to be into that too. I don't know. And
she seems to be very about millennial culture, so I feel like she's got her ass eaten at least once.
Yeah, she might have done it all. Who knows?
She walks around and she seems like she's in a good mood most of the time, so I imagine somebody's fucking her, right?
Yeah, I think Gavin McInnes says, like, people who eat ass, they get a little twinkle in their eye. No, that was Dennis from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I watched that show way too much.
It's a good show.
Yeah, it is a good show.
It's one of my favorites too.
Well, I mean, it's just when this news story broke about AOC, I was just like, I really don't care what these idiots are wearing at their rich, stupid thing. I don't care about any of this. But everyone had to talk about it, and I was just like, now we're talking about it. It's like if I were ever in Congress, or if I were ever like that rich and somebody says, you want to go to a gala at the Met? And it's like, wear a tuxedo? No, I'm rich enough. I don't have to dress like that anymore. Only at funerals where I get dressed up. So, okay.
I'm Adam Sandler rich. I'm walking around in basketball shorts and
right.
Unshaved.
Yeah. It's like, I don't care about those kinds of things. It's pomp and circumstance. And the whole idea of the tax the rich thing and wearing it to a dress and having her dress being held as she walks out, it's very reminiscent of the right before the French Revolution, because Marie Antoinette supposedly said, let them eat cake. It's like, oh, there's all these hungry people out there. She's like, let them eat cake. You're just so oblivious. You got it so good and you have no idea how the common man lives anymore. And it's a shame how quickly AOC forgot where she came from. She was whining on saying, oh, my abuela, her house is all tore up, we never got relief and stuff like that. And Matt Walsh and the conservatives, like Ben Shapiro and stuff like that, started on GoFundMe for AOC's abuela. And she's like, no. And then she goes to this gala saying tax the rich. So I mean, it's sad that she got so swept up in that the swamp of Washington, really. And And I think that's the big shame of it all.
Do you think some of it of the publicity stunt, because that's what we'll call it, publicity stunt? Do you think some of it is a trying to stay relevant for until the next election?
Absolutely. I mean, it's especially when you're in the House. You've got to. If you're a senator, you got like 2 years to actually pay attention to your work before you got to start running again. And so, but when you have 2 years between elections, you gotta like, as soon as you get in office, you're campaigning again. And so right. AOC is campaigning in a heavily, Democratic district. So she doesn't really have to do much. So I think a lot of it has to be the Disney princess that lives inside her, because I think that's what it is. It's like all of a sudden I'm a star, that's why she's always doing these Instagram videos. It's like, finally, I'm a princess. And I think it's as arrogant for her to think that as it was Paris Hilton to write the British monarchy saying she should be married in Buckingham Palace, because Paris Hilton, is like American royalty. That's arrogant as hell.
Yeah, that's arrogant. And that's a display of the American will. For the most part, we're very arrogant people.
Well, when people say oh, Europeans hate Americans, it's because of things like that. It's because of the Paris Hilton. It's because of the AOCs and stuff like that. You're arrogant and useless. So I mean,
so do you think that her ego is getting warped over the years now?
I think it warps everybody. Even if you have a YouTube channel with only like 93 subscribers, I think it warps your own perception of yourself. It warps your perception of the world. Right. Because it's like Fauci. He made some headlines back during the AIDS crisis for being inept. Now all of a sudden everyone is coming, like putting cameras in his face. It's like, oh, I'm getting some attention. It's like right. Neil deGrasse Tyson. He used to be a scientist. Then all of a sudden all the cameras said, ooh, smart black guy, we got to film this. He get cameras shoved in his face all the time, and now I don't consider him a scientist at all.
Right. He's more of a personality.
Exactly. Same with Bill Nye.
He's an engineer anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. Engineers are science, so I
guess you're right.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it can warp anybody. And even like strong-willed people. People always make fun of like child actors and stuff like that who've had cameras shoved in their face from a real young age. And it's like, oh, what the hell happened to Macaulay Culkin? He's super weird now. It's like, well, what do you expect?
Yeah.
And it can warp anybody. And I think that, it really takes a strong will, and a lot of guts to not fall into that trap. So, I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not really faulting AOC for falling into it, but what I'm saying is that, stronger willed people need to be elected to Congress,
Yeah, it's a very broad ask there, Scott.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I know.
I think you just got to work at your own local level for that. Just kind of hope for the best. I like that we can smoke during the podcast now.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by FXBG Public Radio. None of the opinions or bong hits of this podcast are that of FXBG Radio.
No bong hits here.
They're solely the opinion of me.
Well, sometimes people say it's like, why you call yourself Madman? And I'm just like, well, because if anyone takes anything I say too seriously, it's like, well, he himself calls himself a madman. It's like, what do you expect? Wisdom from a madman?
Right. That is a good labeling. I see what you did there.
Well, plus I kind of picked up that nickname when I was in the Navy because I hadn't been properly medicated at that point. And so I was angry all the time, and I was drinking way too much coffee, and so I was way chatty about it. And so
do you drink coffee now?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's probably another reason why you and I have always has some sort of connection, because we're not all doped up on fucking caffeine everybody else.
Yeah, hyper caffeinated people are scary, man. They remind me of cocaine addicts, you know.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Very similar personalities, you know.
Uh-huh. Except their business plans aren't as demonized as cocaine addicts.
Yeah. And generally their houses are messier. You want to talk about Nicki Minaj a bit?
Yeah, man. I was watching Ben Shapiro talk about her.
Oh yeah.
Recently, and I couldn't get over the fact that Ben Shapiro and Nicki Minaj are in agreement over something.
Well, I think that just proves something about Americans. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Americans can unite on a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Nicki Minaj, it's like one of the funniest things I've read in the past week is what she said she on Twitter. There's one quote that everyone was reading. She said, if a Democrat asks you to stuff marbles up your ass, you better do it. But if a Republican says, look out for that truck, you better get hit by the truck. You know, I think that's a hell of a good analogy. It's quite funny in many ways. And so I think it doesn't take a whole lot of intelligence to see through all this nonsense and bullshit that's going out there these days. And I'm not trying to say that Nicki Minaj isn't smart, but it really doesn't take a whole lot of intelligence to sniff out bullshit, especially like this. You know, but what it does take to speak out about it is some courage. It takes some guts, you know, and I think that God bless the Black women. I know they have a lot of guts. That's why I love Black women. You know, they're not afraid to have a personality.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
You see a lot of I hate to be all racial up in this piece, but I mean like white girls tend to be like vanilla and bland in many ways because they don't want to offend anybody. And I don't find that attractive. Personality is important to me when it comes to women. And, you know, it doesn't surprise me that Nicki Minaj has the guts to say, hey, you know, this is a little super weird.
Yeah. You know, in my experience as a comedian, at least, white folks tend to be more uptight. You know, if you're in a mixed audience and you're telling these certain jokes that have a racial humor, you'll tend to get Black audience members laughing harder than white audience members, and white audience members almost waiting for a Black audience member to laugh so that they can laugh. You know what I mean? Like waiting, is it okay if I laugh? And
well, or they're looking at the Black people. It's like, is it okay to laugh? You know,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. And dude, like I said, as a comedian, Black audiences just seem like they're ready to have more fun.
Well, they're just looser people, I think, you know.
And maybe it comes from fucking years of being in bondage and having to deal with all the shit that they dealt with.
Genetic memory, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That when it got time to be free and cut loose, it's like, we're gonna fucking cut loose, you know? And I love being around it personally. I love doing comedy and with Black audiences. Not that I don't like white audiences, but they're just ready to have more fun, dude. And like you said, they have more personality. I think that's a really good way to say that. And maybe that's because of what happened in the past, that they don't trust the government now. So they're not the type of people to sit there and just listen to everything that they're told by Fauci. Thus, you have Nicki Minaj coming out and speaking out against that. And yeah, shit's getting weird.
Well, I think it's hilarious because, you know, it's like, Tucker Carlson talking about Nicki Minaj and Nicki Minaj retweeting something from Tucker Carlson. You know, it's like people are thinking, it's like, I think the simulation's broken. You know, it's like people don't understand is like because you're looking at Nicki Minaj through this lens of Black celebrity, you know, and you know, all these. You know, you're talking about white people being uptight, and it's like they come from the Puritans. You know, all these white people were Puritans when they first came to the United States. You know, and you know the whole temperance movement that led to prohibition of alcohol, which was a bad call. You know, that was all caused by white women. They were doing these no sex strikes and stuff like that. You know, there's like no sex until we get rid of alcohol, and so eventually it got passed. And it was a prohibition of alcohol was a bad thing, it caused a rise in crime. And so, you know, and that was a bunch of white women. And I think that what we have now is a bunch of white women who are saying you need to wear your mask, you need to get vaxxed or something like that. And it takes the guts of somebody like Nicki Minaj to say, it's like, hey, I smell bullshit.
Yeah. It's really interesting seeing the media talk about Nicki Minaj so much. what is her name? Amy Shanker? What's like the White House press lady's name?
Jen Psaki. That soulless red-haired chick.
Yeah, the red-haired chick.
It's not because she's a gender. It's just you can look in her eyes and see there's no soul there.
Yeah, no. But I saw her talking at a press conference talking about how they reached out to Nicki Minaj.
They gave her a call. We wanted to talk to her about it. Well,
what? What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Did y'all call Joe Rogan about the ivermectin too, or no? Probably not. No, I don't think so.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like all these white women are scared of somebody with 120 million followers, saying something that is against the grain. And it's the racism that's inherent within the Democratic Party that makes them think it's like Nicki Minaj is ours. She should be saying what we think.
Yes.
She's disobeying. Yeah.
And that is the inherent kind of tacit means understood without saying, without verbalizing, but that is kind of the agreement that they have amongst each other is if you're a black celebrity or just a black person in general, you should be voting for the Democratic Party. And anytime somebody goes against that grain, I mean, you see what happens, they pulled her off fucking Twitter like she was Trump or something. Yeah. And that's just crazy, man. It's so crazy to see that from a third person point of view. Understand that is racist. There is a racial, at least, undertone about that. It's just a different type of racism. It's systemic. It's that Vermont racism. It's that smile to your face.
Talk and then behind
do
the back.
Things behind your back that limits you as a person. Whereas, Southern racism is usually like, I'm going to be racist to your face.
Yeah, racist to your face, but treat you like a person.
Right, and that Vermont racism, man, it's fucking crazy. I mean, that's that 94 crime bill racism, classic Biden racism.
Absolutely. I think that it takes people like Nicki Minaj to have the guts, because I don't know how many times I've heard people like Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro say it's like I know tons of famous people. I talk to them frequently, and they're just, man, I wish I love you, I love your stuff, but I wish I had the guts to say what's on your mind like you do. And it's like, that's the point, is that we all need to start speaking our mind the way that Nicki Minaj is. Take a playbook out of hers, and don't be afraid to call out bullshit when you see it. Don't be afraid to quit your job if they're saying we need to jab you with this experimental medicine. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid, as a cop, to say we need you to go arrest somebody who's not wearing a mask. It's like, no. This is in Australia. This is America. Right. Yeah. You need to walk off the job if you have to. And, that's happening here and there in America, where people are saying, I'm going to quit if you're going to force me to take this jab. And so I think I think a lot of people, and the more aggressive they get about trying to force you to have it, the less I want it. When Trump started saying, it's like, okay, we got something in development, we think it's going to work. Back then I was like, okay, I think I might have to get that, because hey, no one wants to die. That makes sense. I have comorbidities. I'm a big fatty, so I think maybe I should get it. But the more and more that they're pushing this, I was like, whoa, I don't necessarily want the mark of the beast. I don't know what this is all about. The more afraid I am of you.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like a fucking, it's like a sex predator trying to coerce somebody into getting into bed with them. It's like the more you keep pushing it on me, the more that I'm like concerned you might have herpes.
Well, people want to say is like, oh, like I don't know, when the internet first started coming out, people were like, stop cyberbullying and stuff like that. And you know what? It's never stopped. No, cyberbullying has just become more refined these days. And so when Nicki Minaj posted something about the vaccine mandate, all of a sudden she gets put in Twitter jail. And now you have the big tech companies are being the cyber bullies, because you are not saying what we think you should say, and that's a bullying, that's classic bullying. You better swear that you love James Brown or I'm going to hit you again. Something that was actually said to me when I was bullied.
Was that in Georgia, in Augusta?
That was in Brunswick. Yeah.
Okay.
That was when I lived in Georgia. Better say you love James Brown.
There's a James Brown statue in Augusta, Georgia.
Oh,
anybody
yeah?
wants to go see it.
I bet it's small.
It is. It's small. I'm confident in it. It's life-size James Brown.
Oh, cool.
No, I mean, it's, as a person who sits in the middle, considers themselves a forward thinker. Some people might deem me a libertarian, but I try not to ascribe to any fucking party. It's really refreshing seeing a woman of color come out and speak against the identity politics of what she is expected to do and expected to side with. And her being such a, whether you like her music or not, or, think she's a fucking amazing individual, she's still a prominent member of pop culture, and a prominent member of pop culture for the left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That hypersexual from, the
Well,
hypersexuality and being a woman of color and the hip hop culture. So for her, from all those backgrounds, to come out and speak against something that you're assuming that she should align with based on identity politics and the way everything is going on in this country, is just really refreshing to see somebody step out of that box and go, no, I'm a forward. We don't all have to make our opinions all the way down the line. Oh, I'm a Republican, so that means I'm pro-gun, I'm pro.
Yeah, check everything. Absolutely.
And I just had to check all the boxes. No, you can look at different, different arguments and then base your opinion on your morals and your research, whatever the fuck it is.
That's how we all have different personalities and stuff.
Yeah. Instead of just signing up to be a fucking Democrat or Republican. So seeing her step out of that box with the platform that she has is really refreshing.
Well, I mean, I don't care about her race. What I care about is the fact that she has 120 some million followers. And that's what made this such an issue, is that because she has the ear of a younger generation, a younger generation hanging on to the things she says, it kind of scares the Democratic Party. And, with all the stuff they're trying to push, because this quote unquote anti-vax movement might catch steam and people are going to be refusing to take it, no matter how good it may be for them. It's like I am not so much scared of the vaccine as I am the people who are trying to force it on me. Today it's a vaccine I may need. What is it tomorrow? They're talking about boosters. They're talking about, vaccine cards that you got to show to get into businesses and stuff like that. That's some crazy socialist Russia, communist Russia nonsense. That is 1984 Leningrad, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Literally.
No, yeah, that's what it reminds me of too. And I mean, I hate doing this because it's such a cliche thing to do, but that's literally stuff that happened in Nazi Germany,
Yep.
There are your papers. There are the papers. Present the papers.
Exactly. And it didn't really start with soldiers going door to door, pulling Jews out there and stuff. It was the neighbor ratting on neighbor, and it's just like, if you go out there and you say a lie like Hitler did, so many lies saying that, the Jews are making us sick. They have some disease. Show us where they are so we can go and quarantine and in these special camps we made for them until they get better. Next thing you know, you got horrible atrocities.
Could you imagine what those guys would have done with propaganda if they had the power of social media and information moving as fast as it does these days?
Well, I think
Goebbels and Hitler and those guys.
I think there are people like Hitler that are still being born every day.
Totally.
I mean, I think that
psychopaths exist. Yeah, 10,000%.
Psychopaths, sociopaths, they absolutely exist. I think that there are people running around this country, United States, who are little mini tyrants, people who are confronting people in Target saying, you're not wearing a mask, are you vaxxed, and stuff like that. Those kinds of people are mini tyrants. And if a guy like that, if little Adolf Hitler was walking around Target, so I'm like, why aren't you wearing the mask? And stuff like that. The difference between the guy confronting you in Target and Adolf Hitler is Adolf Hitler actually had power. The guy in Target doesn't have any power. Did you see that guy in Target who was confronting a woman about her mask? Yeah. Anyway, a lot of conservative shows have shown that clip where he's confronting her for not having a mask, and because no men real men shop in Target. So it's just a bunch of women coming to her defense, is saying, mind your business, you know. And you know, I think that that's a thing that we got to confront on a daily basis more and more nowadays, is that the little petty tyrants that live around you and are in your community, that see that there is some sort of righteous power that they think they have because they are vaccinated, or they believe in the mask mandates or something like that, and they feel like they have a right to bully somebody else around, you know, because that they think they're on the quote unquote right side of history.
But and it goes both ways. I've heard stories of, you know, these fucking school board meetings where parents are ripping masks off teachers, and the rhetoric at least it does go both ways. But you know, for the most part, you don't see the anti-vax people walking around shouting at people to take their mask off.
Exactly. I went to the Fred Nats game last night, and there are some people out there, and there are some people out there who are wearing masks and stuff like that. Generally, they were elderly people. You know, most of the time I saw somebody with a mask on, they were older people or larger people, you know, fatter people who have like comorbidities, higher risk people. And that makes sense to me. But I'm not going to get there, you know, jump up in their face and shout. It's like, you don't need that. You know, that's your choice. If you want to dress up as Spider-Man and go to the Fred Nats game, I really don't care. In fact, I'd probably hang out with you, get a selfie. You know what I'm saying?
I encourage it.
Yeah. And I'd rather people do that than wear these masks, you know, dress up as your favorite superhero. I mean, I think that's a problem, is everyone stopped cosplaying like 2 years ago, and then everyone went crazy. You know, it used to be the internet was full of people, pictures of people cosplaying and stuff like that. Then all of this COVID thing breaks out, no more cosplay events, and everyone went nuts.
Yeah. And it just keeps snowballing, man. You know, I was about to ask earlier about AOC. How do you think that's going to snowball, her ego and her, what's going on with that? And now you have Nicki Minaj, and, you know, the Nicki Minaj tweet paired with the vaccine mandates. And it's like, how the fuck is this going to snowball? You know, what's next? And, you know, here's my conspiracy theorist point of view, but I don't think everything is so much of a coincidence that all of this levels of division and all these things being publicized at the same time. I don't think it's a coincidence that that's happening right before the Ghislaine, what's her name? Maxwell? Ghislaine Maxwell trial.
Yeah.
It's about to happen. It's coming up in November. So I'm just, you know, as I'm like, you know, we're here and that's here. And I keep seeing this close, and I'm like, what's going to happen between now and then? You know what I mean? Because everything seems to just keep kind of steeping and getting weirder and weirder, leading to that. And I'm like, man, I don't know. It's just all very convenient sometimes.
I'm not into like QAnon or something like that. I heard this one guy going off about, they executed Hillary in Guantanamo Bay like 9 months ago. Like, what? You know, you hear some really off the wall stuff, you know, some people, you know, and, you know, I'm all about having a good imagination and stuff like that. As long as you can keep, you know, reality and fantasy separate, you know, I think it's okay. And, and I don't really prescribe, to subscribe to any like conspiracy theories or anything like that. I generally don't think people work together that well, you know, but I think that, you know, when it comes to AOC, I think she's probably going to ride out her terms as long as she can, you know, and just trying to live like a princess. Because I think that's the depth of her personality. I think I find her to be a shallow person. And so I think all that she cares about is the views she gets.
And I mean, I'm not saying that is, but if that perception, that hypothesis of yours is true, then that only means pairing that with this recent incident and all the publicity that she's getting from that, it's only going to snowball and get worse and get more, you know, more and more of an act, more and more of the princess role. And how can I,
also it's like, you got to keep like getting more extreme.
That's what I mean. Yeah. You gotta keep topping. Once you set the bar, you got to top it. You know what I mean? It's like having a girlfriend. Once you fucking buy her flowers, okay, well, you know.
I mean,
don't make your first gift too complicated. You know what I mean? You can't fucking handcraft her a birdhouse out of fucking teak wood, for her first gift. What are you going to do next?
It depends on how much you can build, I suppose. I mean, it's I think you're right. It's like, but there's a point where edgy becomes ridiculous, and I think that's what this whole trans issue has become, is that, there's nothing weirder, quote unquote, than gay people back in like the 1980s. It's like, oh, that's weird. It's like, now being gay, isn't enough. Now I got to be, I identify as a unicorn. I'm a mecha self. Refer to me as a mecha self.
Yeah.
And so at some point, the counterculture becomes so ridiculous that it's not edgy or cool anymore.
Oh, I almost fucked up somebody's pronoun the other day at work.
Oh yeah.
We work at a nightclub, and there was like a music event going on in this. I don't even know how to define this person. It was definitely a biological man that was born with a penis and had a 5 o'clock shadow, but definitely put off the vibe that was trying to identify as a woman. And, just me going through my habits and my rituals, I almost said, enjoy the show, man. Just because that's what I do to everybody that comes to the shows at our venue. I'm like,
right,
enjoy the show, man. Have a good evening, dude.
Yeah.
And I almost slipped up and did that with this individual. And I was like, man, how would that have played out if I fucked up this person's pronoun? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, and I don't think we should be living in that kind of fear.
No, I know. Yeah, I know.
I'm not on your LARP team, so I don't have to play your stupid game.
Right. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's incredibly narcissistic. It's like, you need, if you don't know what pronouns, you're clearly don't follow me on Instagram, where my Instagram is full of me talking about what pronouns you need to use when you're talking to me. Then clearly it's like, you shouldn't even be talking to me. Like, we have to interact with each other at some level in human society. And if I call you a dude, even though you're wearing a dress, you shouldn't be saying it's ma'am and like causing a fuss. Let it go.
That's the other thing, is that pronoun, particularly dude. This is dude. Long is dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything is dude to me. Like I call chicks dude all the time. I call chicks bros sometimes.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because there's chicks that are my fucking bros and are my buddies like that.
Yeah, it's like the Latinx thing. It's like, I speak a little Spanish, and so I've spoken to a lot of Hispanic people, and I said, do you guys use that Latinx thing? And they're like, no, I'm Latino, that's a Latina. It's Spanish, it's a Romance language, and so every word is either masculine or feminine. There's no in between. I think there are neutral words, but I mean, it's so Latino, Latina, when this whole idea of Latinx came around, it wasn't Hispanic people's idea. It was a bunch of white liberal women. I guarantee it. They said, well, we can't use Latina or Latino because that implies gender, and it's just like, it's a ridiculous Puritan kind of way of approaching the issue. And it's ridiculous. It's like I said, I hate to keep saying, damn, these damn white women, they're just a huge problem in this country, but I think that they are, they've kind of went a little crazy.
You know what? Personally, I think it's a nice change. I think we should pass the buck to them, because for so many years now, it's been the cisgendered straight white male who's been the issue. So I'm in full agreement. I think that white women are the issue. I think it's cisgendered white women that are the issue.
Well, I mean, it's because the power has been conceded to them in many ways, socially and culturally. It's like, I heard Matt Walsh, he's been talking lately about how the school system and the university system is geared more towards the way females learn. Males learn with like hands-on kind of things. The women can sit still in a desk, and learn, just by being orated to and so forth. But little boys, they're always fidgety. They want to do something, and stuff like that. And they end up getting medicated, and now it's to the point where the universities, there are more females women at universities and colleges than there are males, because males are thinking it's like, well, I'm a piece of shit because I have a dick, so I don't deserve anything but a trade at best.
No, yeah, and it's weird stepping back from the art and looking at the social engineering that's been going on in this country for the past however many years, and where it's heading and how it's affecting our culture because of these different, and not that there wasn't validity to some of the movements, but how aggressive they got and how out of hand some of those feminist movements got, and not just feminist movements, but minority movements and stuff as well. It's just crazy, the social engineering that's been going on and how you're seeing that affect culture, like with, all this money going to an organization like Black Lives Matter, who supports communism, and they're fucking, the people who run that organization are just profitizing incredibly off the Black struggle. And then you have instances like this where the demonization of men and the Me Too movement and bring down the patriarchy. Not that there's not validity to some of those concepts, at least to a certain degree, but you can see how that is shaping the culture. And if we didn't live in such a fucking black and white perspective of the universe, we could find compromises within the degrees of the patriarchy and feminism, or the Black Lives Matter and not Black Lives. You understand what I'm saying, is that there's degrees between all of these things, and with the advent of identity politics and how overblown that is, everything just keeps getting more and more extreme to that side. So it's like, all right, well, this is the way we're going to fix the patriarchy, is we're just going to, we're going to make it more, say this, this is the middle point for, all right, this is how boys learn and this is how girls learn, and it's been too far over here, so we're just going to fucking put it over here now. And it's right. Like, no, why don't you find that balance in between?
Yeah.
You don't balance out the past by going
the other way.
You know what I mean? That far to the other way. That's not how it fucking works.
That's that critical race theory concept, is like, how you fix the racism of the past is by racism today. And that's ridiculous. That's not how it works. Certainly not in America. I think we do need to find a happy medium, so that everyone, and I think for a while, when it comes to the feminism issue, is like after the birth control was perfected for women, like birth control pills, so it was put in their hands so they could be responsible with their bodies. Careful now. So I think it was like the mid to late 70s and the 80s and the early 90s were a very cool time, and a very cool time where I grew up, and so where men and women were equal. My mom had a job, and stuff like that. She wasn't just a housewife, so and I think in the late 70s and the 80s, there was a true equality, and I mean, and people were able to we were able to live in a happy medium for a while, until it went crazy with like the new wave feminism and stuff that came around in the 90s. And so it's I think we can get back to that place again. It's just, we got to talk down these people that are taking it way too far, and that takes standing up like Nicki Minaj and so forth, and it's calling bullshit when you see it.
I think that's the best way to kind of summarize everything that I was trying to say, because fuck, I mean, it's so hard not to say the things that I just said without sounding like some sort of fucking bigot, or I'm a fucking woman hater or whatever. It's just that I see these certain social issues. I do understand that there needs to be some sort of change, whether it comes to police funding, abortion, vaccines, women's rights and human rights. But there seems to stop overcorrecting. Overcorrecting. When your car hydroplanes, what happens if you fucking overcorrect? You
got to turn into the skid. You got to turn into the skid.
And that's what it seems like is happening here. Hey, and maybe my opinion is just my opinion, because I'm a cisgendered straight white male, and I'm at least when it comes to that narrative, I'm part of the problem, and maybe some of my opinion is based out of fear, and maybe all these things aren't overcorrected. It's just me being a fucking scared, straight, white, cisgendered male. But I want to believe that my opinion is from a third person human point of view, a rational fucking point of view of.
Well, I mean, that's what's being silenced. You know, everyone's pointing at a male, especially white males like us, and saying, hey, you know, you shouldn't have a successful YouTube channel because you're a cis white male. Right. You know, you shouldn't, we should push you down the algorithm because you're a white male, you know, or you have these views or whatever, you know, and I think that has what has killed rock and roll. It's like, I haven't heard a good rock and roll song in a long ass time, because rock and roll has always been the domain of white men. You know, angry white men. And because boys are told, it's like, your anger is invalid. You know, no one wants to get up there in a guitar and scream into a microphone, you know, like good old punk rock days. No white kids are, you know, dyeing their hair and spiking it up and thrashing on their guitar and spitting on their crowds, because they're saying, oh, you know, this is just the patriarchy spitting on the crowds, you know. And that's it's like clipping the wings of the masculinity. And that is like the most valuable thing about men. It's like, you know, masculinity is what has built skyscrapers, has built societies, it has built cultures all over the world, you know. And I'm telling you, like, the Taliban understands that, China understands that, Russia understands that. And that's what's going to cost America in the long run, is that this idea that, you know, femininity is the true power. And that's not true. You know, any culture and society that's been based around a matriarchy has fallen apart. It's like when in that Rick and Morty episode where they go to that world that's controlled by the women, the spider in Sector 7 is still there. Try to plan your route accordingly. You know, so I mean, there's value to both the masculine and the feminine. And pretend
the masculine and feminine energy. I mean, that's one of the 7 Hermetic principles. I've studied, you know, Gnostic and Hermetic belief. That's ancient Egyptian shit, dude. You know what I mean? Everything has a masculine and feminine energy, including us biological males. You know, you said earlier, I'm not much of a man. I'm not much of a man either. But like,
but I mean,
balance to be found.
There is a balance to be found. It's like, and you know, a lot of the things that made me the Madman, you know, was, you know, me ranting about stuff like that. And sure, if I had too much coffee, at some point it becomes poisonous and toxic. Absolutely, I understand that. So I stopped drinking coffee because I didn't like how much I was twitching, you know. Plus, you know, I was pissing off a lot of people, you know. So I'm not the kind of guy out there who's like, you know, swinging my dick around, as it were, all the time, you know. And that's because that's not how I want to live my life, you know. I don't want to be offensive to females, because eventually I want to fuck one or two. So I mean, it's just so, yeah. It's you know, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I mean, I'm not going to stifle myself. I'm not going to, you know, stop practicing guitar just because I think that my art or my anger or my angst is invalid because of the masculine nature of it. I mean, that's ridiculous and sexist. Yeah. You know?
I'm not going to stifle myself either. I'm just going to, you know, I'm smart enough and I read enough books that I have a pretty decent understanding of how to formulate my thoughts, my language into a certain way, which gets across the point without being offensive. Unless you just want to hear things from an offended victim point of view. Then that's just how you're going to hear everything. If you walk around with a hammer, everything becomes a fucking nail. So if you walk around wanting to be offended, everything becomes offensive.
Well, I mean, I mean, that has a lot to do. That has, I think, more to do with the way people's psyches are. You know, it's like, if you're the kind of person who scrolls through Facebook looking for something to complain about, or it's like, oh, that's racist, or that's sexist, or you're scrolling through YouTube and you're in the comments, it's like, I can't believe he said that, you know, blah, 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 blah. And like, I want to rant about it in the comment section. Fine, go ahead. That's what comment sections are for, as far as I'm concerned. Whenever I upload a video, I say allow all comments. It's like, because I don't care what people say about me. You know,
the fucked up part about that culture is it's addicting. It's affecting your dopamine, especially when people start agreeing with you. Like, it's fucking with your your physiology and your psychology. You know what I mean? It's fucking with your chemicals in your brain.
Well, it's like I picked up a few subscribers over the last couple of weeks, and I always make this joke from like I'm proud of those units. I'm proud of every single one of those units. You know, from that Get Them to the Greek movie. I always quote that, and I sometimes I think, you know, if I get to the point where I have like 50,000 subscribers or something like that, and I pick up 1,000 subscribers in a day, will I feel any less good about that than I do when I pick up 1 or 2 subscribers? It's like, no. I mean, if anyone wants to listen to me, if I have 1 subscriber and they watch the videos, I don't care. It's like most of what I do is just for my own peace of mind. It's like a lot of what Shock Monkey Radio is about is compartmentalizing all my anger and rage into 1 or 2 hours a week. And so that way I'm not out there in the world spitting my vitriol all over everybody and offending the people that I'm closest to, which is my community. I can rant into the ether of the internet all day and not care about it. I consider the internet to be simplex communication going one way. I don't care what anyone comments generally under. I mean, I read comments because I read a lot. I like reading, and I am interested in what people think and say. But at the same time, it's not going to stop me from being who I am. I have a little bit of the spirit of Norm Macdonald in me in that way, that, you know, I'm not afraid of my own masculinity. I'm not afraid of making my own mistakes. You know, I think that we all should live a little bit more like that, you know?
Yeah, totally. No, and that's the thing too. I'm not trying to back down from my values or my goals, my desires as a man. And I'm not backing, you know, I fuck, football's on right now. I want to be watching football, dude. You know what I mean? Like I have those things that I like. Those are the things that are typically associated with being a man or toxic masculinity or whatever. I'm not going to back down from those things just because the culture is going the way that it is. But I'm not going to get all fucking emotional about it and try and shove it down your throat and be like, no, everyone should own a fishing rod. Like, it's fucking ridiculous.
Well, I mean, we were talking about Norm Macdonald, and I was saying about how he never really talked about his faith, you know, and, you know, he was a Christian. He believed in God. And so, and I also am a Christian, you know, and so I've lived my entire life with the concept is like, you know, if somebody asks me about my faith, if they ask me about my religion or what I believe, it's like, I will tell them, but I'm not going to be that guy who's out there, you know, hitting people over the head with my Bible saying, you have to believe, you know who does that? Islam does that, you know, convert or die, you know, basically. And so, I mean, it's, I may have these beliefs and stuff like that, but I'm not out there trying to force it down anyone's throat.
Right.
You know, and I think that when you do try to force that down people's throat, that's where the problems come in. And that's like you were talking about, like people going to the school board meetings, ripping masks off of people. That's trying to force your beliefs on somebody else. And that's just as wrong as what they're doing. And so, I mean, we ourselves have to find that happy medium, you know, between our masculine, you know, I guess feminine energy or whatever like that, and just understand that you have to live in a world. I live in a society. I hope it continues another day, because the way things are going, it doesn't look too good. So, but I mean, at the same time, you know, it's like Nietzsche said, is the line between good and evil runs directly down the center of every human heart, you know, and that's true. And so we have to make the choices for good. We have to make the choices to not side with the evil. And a lot of people don't understand, it's like selfishness can be evil. You know, if you can be selfish enough to like, I need to get more exercise, I need to take care of my body, you know, because I want, you know, live a longer life, a healthier life, I want to do things. But at the same point, you don't want to end up, you know, looking at yourself in the mirror all day. It's like, God damn, I look good. You know, it's like, that's a little too much. And so like selfishness isn't always good. And so I think we need to recognize that each as individuals, you know, and try to side with the good whenever possible. And it's not easy for anybody on this earth to do.
No, we're fucking human, and that's part of that's just part of whatever this is, this existence, this realm. I believe that we are God and the devil, you know what I mean? We have the potential for pride and for being humble, you know, we have the potential for lust and love, and it's your own temptation that's evil, you know what I mean? That it's your own ego that gets in the way of being connected to
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's like even in like the cartoons, they'll have like an angel pop up on one shoulder, the devil pop up on the other, trying to.
And it's always you.
That's you. That's every person's. Yeah, that's every person's psyche. On every decision that we make, and you have to listen to the good. You have to listen to the good, and Jordan Peterson turned me on to that line from Nietzsche, because I would never read Nietzsche. I was raised
God's dead.
Yeah, because he said that, all the Christians I grew up around say you should never read Nietzsche because he believes God is dead. And now that I understand, it's like maybe I cheated myself by listening to these right wingers who told me not to read that stuff. Because I think that Nietzsche, in many ways, he was very much like Norm Macdonald in the sense, it's like, I'm going to challenge these concepts.
Right. And yeah.
Nietzsche lived in a world where, dominated by Christianity, and it's just like Martin Luther, the Protestant Reformation. Right. It's like, hey, hold on a second. I got some things to say, and so I think that there's a lot of value. And it's like you make your name in the history books like Martin Luther did by doing that very thing. So we need to listen to our good side as much as we can. We need to think reasonably and objectively, and stop overcorrecting and try to live in the happy medium so we can all get along and our society can continue. Because I do like this place, this earth.
Yeah, me too. I think it's important that people understand that about our podcast too, that this isn't our way of trying to shove our ideas down your throat or make you think a certain way. This all started out of us because we typically, at least in the beginning, we were disagreed on a lot of things, you know what I mean, when it came to these different social subjects. So the object of this podcast was to show you that two people could have a healthy discourse.
Absolutely.
Still remain friends. Find compromise like we've done before. We did it with abortion last week. Everybody gets 3. And show you that we can still be friends afterwards.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know whether a lot of people know this or not, but before I moved to Texas and when we first started doing this podcast, even before we were doing this podcast, we were seeing each other at least once a week, if not two or three times.
Yeah.
And we'd have these conversations out back smoking cigarettes. Yeah. And for every conversation we had about, well, Madman, I believe that they're all corrupt and politicians are like wrestlers and it's all a conspiracy. And you would disagree and go, well, I don't think that people work together that well enough for everything to be a conspiracy, Scott. For every conversation we had like that, we had a conversation about, beautiful sunsets over the ocean from the view of a fucking battleship. You know what I mean? That you couldn't even imagine the sunset, Scott.
Yeah. Swimming with the dolphins, swimming with the ship and stuff like that. It's like, absolutely. It's like, and we talk about music. We talk about like television shows that we like, or I made that jean shorts joke and stuff like that. And you come running in from another room to to laugh at it. It's like that was the majority of our conversations were things like that. And I think that if you're out there looking for something to be offended by, you're going to find what you're looking for. It's like, Jesus said, seek and ye shall find. And so I think what I'm looking for is a good time and to live harmoniously with the people around me. And it's like, I'm going to stop following Scott on social media because he doesn't agree with me 100%.
Right.
And even though when I first met you, we were very, very different in terms of our political views, is like over time, people like you and like Nicki Minaj and so forth are getting swept by this authoritarianism that is coming from the left into this other area. And we're all like, all these Republicans are pulling you behind the wall. It's like, it's like, you're safe now. I think that's what Nicki Minaj realized, is that, these Republicans aren't necessarily partisan because they'll get her back, even though she probably deep down knows is like, if she starts talking about anything else like abortion or something like that, they're not going to back her on that. But at the same time, it's like, we respect the right to freedom of speech, even for somebody like Nicki Minaj.
Yeah. You know how I knew things were really getting weird is earlier this week, I was watching, because I watch all the channels, you know what I mean? I will jump back and forth between Fox and CNN on the same day in the same hour, just to,
Sure.
because I'm not partial, you know what I mean? I want to see what both talking heads are saying.
Yeah.
How are you trying to hypnotize me, and how are you trying to hypnotize
Exactly.
me? I know the truth is somewhere in the fucking middle.
Yeah.
But I was watching CNN, and I knew things were bad when CNN was showing clips of Rand Paul as a reference for their narrative, like in agreement with what Rand Paul was saying. I was like, well, shit's getting fucking weird now, dude. And it had to do with the drone strike that recently happened. Everybody's talking about where these children and aid workers and whatnot were fucking, brutally killed. And this all in the aftermath. All in the aftermath of everything that happened in Afghanistan. This totally shanked pullout. I mean, God, if it was a golf swing, it would have been in the highway somewhere. It wouldn't even be on the course anymore. So, but yeah, man, watching CNN, when CNN isn't on Biden's side about Afghanistan, you know what I mean? Because even they were like Saigon, even CNN was pushing that rhetoric and that narrative, that propaganda. Yep. And then now, a couple of weeks later, you have the drone strike, and once again, CNN is not on Biden's side. They're demonizing him and stuff. And yeah, man, it's getting weird. Do you think that, I mean, just as human beings, those talking heads have to have some morality. I don't know how much of it plays over in the on camera, but do you think it's possible that some of this rhetoric from the left against Biden is like a ploy to try to get him to lose favor so they can fucking impeach him and get Kamala in?
I definitely think that that's a possibility. I also think that there are some things that are objectively a bad call, and so I think that even if you can't really call yourself a news channel, if you're not going to say that this Afghanistan thing was a hot mess, and so even CNN has to own up to that in some degree. And so I think that that's why when Biden put these vaccine mandates in order, that was a more iffy call for the Democrats to run with. It was something they can get more meat on the bone for them, and they can work with better. And so CNN will be totally down with the vaccine mandates, but still pan the Biden administration about the thing in Afghanistan. It's because they can do more with that. And so it's a shame. But I mean, I think at some point it's like everyone's got a bullshit detector, and at some point it's too much bullshit, and then even CNN has to go, we can't really push this. And they've been having a little bit of bullshit in their shit sandwich for a while, but if we take away the bread, they're going to notice, So
yeah, but it's just, like I was saying about, it's refreshing to see Nicki Minaj step out of that box that people want to put her in because of identity politics. It's, if it isn't the weird chess move that I hypothesized of them trying to get Kamala in office, then it is super refreshing to see some objective point of view journalism from that, media source, whether it was Fox or CNN, you know what I mean? Just to see some objective journalism is like,
absolutely.
Thank you, finally.
And it's a shame that what horrible thing has to happen, like the Afghanistan pullout, to cause them to start being objective about it. I mean, and we shouldn't have to praise them for once in a while getting it right. We should hope that they will want to get it right all the time. And so I think that we should expect more from our news providers. And so I think that you can't praise them too much for getting one thing right. It's like you're still running with this crazy narrative about the vaccines and so forth. And it's like, but as long as you're objective about the drone strike and how horrible it is that innocent people getting killed just trying to appease the American public, say, see, we're doing something, but you kill innocent people in the process. that doesn't make anybody happy. Objectively, nobody likes that. I don't care what side of the aisle you are on. You don't want our military killing innocent people, you know. And when Obama had a bunch of drone striking American citizens, there are plenty of people both sides of the aisle saying, "Hey, what's up with that?"
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I just almost don't even remember what it's like. I mean, my consciousness to the concept of like news, you know what I mean? And like national, international reporting and journalism is really born after, like on 9/11, 2001.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's for me, that's kind of when I came into, I was in fourth grade when that happened. Yeah. I'm not someone who watched the news before that and paid attention to, right. I was alive when different things were happening, but that's not something that I was comprehending as a child.
Yeah.
9/11 and everything after that is when I really started first being able to like comprehend these things and being conscious of
paying attention
of them too. And since then, I mean, we've been in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and Libya and here and there and and then after that it was Obama and then Trump and really around the Obama era, that the age of social media, when it is kind of at the same time Obama came in,
right?
You've seen the news just lose its objectivity and everything is very
partisan.
This is our narrative. So for me, I turned 30 on November 23rd. So as a 30-year-old adult, I feel like I've never seen news that
was partisan. Yeah.
And I'm like, what was that like? What is that like?
I'll tell you one thing. It was a lot harder to find partisan stuff. It was far more subtle. I mean, it's not like it wasn't there. It was a lot more subtle, and these journalists and so forth, they would, it would take more like a different level of art. It actually was an art form. Journalism was an art form. And to the point where you'd have to be clever about how you present your partisan, idea into the story without being noticed by the editor, right? Because it used to be the editor's job to make sure that there's impartiality, and so forth within the article. Now editors are the most partial thing when it comes to like any news organization. The editors is like, they'll come in and it's like, all right, we're backing the Biden administration. Anything they say is good. And so that's how I want you to write the articles.
Right.
And that's not the editor's job. The editor should be the most objective person in the newsroom. I mean, you can have all sorts of writers that work for you at a news organization and presenters and, personalities on all your shows or whatever. You can have all of that and have them be partisan, but you got to have the editor sitting there saying, this is not, this is not a, it's not objective enough. It's like this line here needs to be taken out or modified. It's the problem is in this paragraph. The problem is in this sentence. Everything else in the article is good, but you're coming off too liberal or Republican. It's that should be the editor's job.
Yeah. No, yeah, that would be refreshing to see some.
Yeah, it would be refreshing to go back to that. I mean, people want to say like the fairness doctrine, was a good idea. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you can fill a 24-hour news cycle with objective journalism. It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, it's like I don't want anyone thinking that Fox News is the sole source of trustworthy news or CNN is the sole source of whatever news organization. It's like you said, you flip back and forth between CNN and Fox News, and I think that's a good balance to have. You get to see both sides, and so forth, and find the truth somewhere in the middle. It's like I saw a meme today where it's like most of the people who won't do research on a topic like the vaccines or mask mandates or whatever like that, they're way too busy doing these tests to see what kind of potato they are. What Nicki Minaj song are you? Yeah.
What Nicki Minaj song are you?
Yeah, it's like,
if you were on a drone strike, what country would you be in?
Yeah. Like, how many civilians would you kill? And unfortunately, it's like, because we are a representative, democracy in a republic, it's like some of the culpability of those innocent deaths is on our hands too, because we've allowed our country to get to this point. And it's like I said, we need to stand up in our streets, in our targets, everywhere, and say, hey, this is bullshit. And most importantly, we need to go to the polls and do the research about who's running. Not just flip a switch or push a button just because it has a D or an R next to their name. When you cast your vote, for God's sakes, know who you're casting your vote for. Because even as a Republican, you can say, it's like, this guy's been in here way too long. I may be a Republican, but I don't want a guy who's been in there for like 16, 20 years. Right. It's the same thing. It's like, I don't understand why career politician is a career track for anyone. When the Congress first formed, it was kind of like a part-time job. The whole idea of Congress going on a break was so they can go back home and harvest their crops. And that it should be a part-time job. It shouldn't be a full-time job. I think that we could save a lot of money as the American taxpayer by stop paying these representatives. That way, they have to get a regular job or be rich enough that they can afford to do that solely. And it's. I just hope that sooner rather than later, I hope that some sort of rational president gets into office and cleans house. There's a lot of these organizations, these what they call career bureaucrats and stuff like that, who have an inordinate amount of power, like the National Institute of Health and the CDC. And these organizations are extensions of our government. And so, I think the idea of term limits is a good thing as well. And so when these people are living, they wait out a president. It's like, oh, this guy came in office. We're not going to get funding for X, our X, Y, and Z programs. So I'll just sit here back in the CEO position, collecting my paycheck as the head of the NIH or something like that, until a president who is favorable lets me push my authoritarian medical nonsense. So I just hope we need to clean house. Our government's too big. The FBI is ridiculously corrupt. I mean, I don't even know what to say about the FBI. I mean, I've known for years that they were partisan. I've known for years, just because I worked in government, and everyone I know is like, oh yeah, FBI is super liberal. Always backing Democrats. And their ambitions. And people are making fun of like what happened to the J6 rally that was in DC that no conservative I know went to up in DC this weekend. That it was just a bunch of FBI snitches gathering together, trying to find the one guy who wasn't part of the FBI, who was a troublemaker, and they couldn't find one. They erected all this stuff around DC to try to protect all these federal buildings and stuff like that, thinking there was going to be some sort of insurrection, and nothing happened. And so I think it brings a lot of stuff into question when it comes to what happened on January 6th. It's like how much did the FBI and the Capitol Police were involved in like trying to stir something up on that day.
Right.
So I just hope that
not like a conspiracy theorist, man.
No, it's not like I'm a conspiracy theorist. But I do think there should be investigations.
Yeah. What's the thing about conspiracies and conspiracy theories? They're only conspiracy theories until they're proven.
Right. Then it becomes fact. Yeah.
I mean, fuck, man. You know what? Let's wrap up, and we'll talk about this on the next podcast.
All right, we'll talk about it next time. We were able to cover most everything, so I'm glad we got it done.
Yeah, no, we talked about norm. We were in agreement on norm.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. AOC, tax rich.
Yeah, tax rich. Yes, I like that. That was that is reminiscent. We talked about Nicki Minaj and the vaccine mandates that was kind of wrapped into one.
And the drone strikes that pissed us both off.
Yeah, and throughout all of that, I think we even expanded on a few other ideas too.
Absolutely, we sure did.
feminism, I think. We
Yep,
kind of talked about.
feminism, the danger of feminism, the value of masculinity, all that stuff, man.
Yeah.
But you know how it is. It's like we can sit here and we can talk forever because we're
That's
friends.
true.
Because we're
That's
friends.
true. We are friends, and your opinion I'll defend. You're right to have it. You know, just don't be a dick about it.
Try not to be. That's why I quit coffee.
I feel like we've been doing a good job, you know, here on these past 2 episodes of, and we haven't really been in disagreement on anything, but of eliminating emotion from the arguments and just trying to be calm and not argue and have a discourse and try to eliminate the rhetoric and the emotion from the tone in which you speak.
Well, it's just
we can have these conversations with each other in a calm tone, in a resolute tone, as opposed to a combative tone, I think that makes all the difference.
Plus, you know, there's things I might say or you might say that we can just let go. You know, words only last, you know, they don't, they're gone.
Well, and not just that, but my ideas aren't my fucking identity. You know, so sure. if your idea disagrees with my idea on the same subject, that doesn't mean you're attacking me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean you're attacking my idea. So I think people need to detach from their fucking, I'm too attached to the idea that people are too attached to their ideas. Do you understand?
Yeah, everything in moderation, I suppose. Well, I guess we can pick this up next week, man.
Yeah, let's pick it up next week.
So this has been a good show. Guys. We'll see you guys next time. 2 weeks, right?
Yes, 2 weeks.
All right.
Peace and love and harmony, fucking losers.
How do you stop this?